Not seeing my videos in your subscription feed? Make sure you've clicked the little bell next to the subscribe button to be notified of all my newest uploads.
Hey, what's up people? Pizzal here, and continuing my journey into the world of nunsploitation, which I started with Severin Films Blu-ray release for The Other Hell. I'll put a link to that video somewhere around here. Go check it out. Today, I want to talk to you guys about Severin Films' upcoming Blu-ray release for Dark Waters, written, produced, and directed by Mariano Baino. And Dark Waters is a movie that defies plot, defies narrative, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it does all those things in an utterly impressive and artful way. Now, the basic plot of the movie revolves around this young woman. She's traveling to a convent out in the middle of nowhere to visit a friend of hers. By the time she arrives at the convent, her friend has disappeared, so she embarks on an investigation to find out what happened to her friend. She then discovers that the nuns that live in this convent are all a bunch of depraved weirdos who, when they're not flogging themselves, they're worshiping some sort of sea demon. And even though Dark Waters isn't the easiest movie to follow at times and is maybe a little too artsy here and there, my hat is definitely off to writer, producer, director Mario Baino. He's created one of the most ambitious horror movies I've seen in quite some time, with a very small crew and a very small budget, clearly inspired by the Euro horror films of the 70s and 80s, with a good chunk of H.P. Lovecraft thrown in there for good measure. This movie is all about atmosphere, it's all about mood, and Dark Waters has got those two things in droves. The atmosphere of the movie, the locations, the fact that the movie is just covered in rain and water, the loose narrative, it just creates this very dreamlike, hallucinatory experience that I really dug. Again, I didn't understand everything that was going on in the film, but my eyes were on the screen the entire time and I was thoroughly entertained the entire time. I even think some of the scenes in the movie were kind of like mini vignettes. They were their own little vignettes that you put together to create the larger story of Dark Waters, which again revolves around a convent full of depraved nuns who, when they're not flogging themselves, they're worshiping a sea demon. If you're tired of the same old cookie cutter horror movies and you want to challenge yourself with something a little more cerebral, something you've got to pay attention to, and something that I think this movie would be rewarding for multiple viewings. I definitely think I'm going to check the movie out again very, very soon. Dark Waters is definitely something that you should look into, and this Blu-ray release from Severin Films would be a great way to introduce yourself to this movie, because there's lots of great extras on this disc. The Blu-ray sports a brand new HD transfer from the original 35mm print of the movie. The picture quality and the sound quality are both great on this Blu-ray. As far as extras are concerned, we have the featurette Lovecraft Made Me Do It, a 9.5-minute interview with writer, producer, director Mariano Baino. Baino discusses his philosophy on horror, his love of reading as a child, including comics like Tarzan and books like Planet of the Apes, which turned him on to sci-fi, and then eventually discovering the work of H.P. Lovecraft. Baino discusses first discovering Fangoria magazine back in 1983. He still had that issue of Fangoria magazine, still held on to it, still looked in really good condition from all the way back in 1983. Baino, he explains how his love of comics, Lovecraft, and horror inspired him to be the filmmaker that he is today. Really nice interview with Mariano Baino there. Next up, we have got the featurette Let There Be Water, a 6-minute and 44-second interview with writer, producer, director Mariano Baino. Baino discusses shooting a sequence early in the film in which a church is flooded with water and the many difficulties of shooting that sequence. He also shows us the original rushes from shooting that sequence. Very impressive, very cool sequence at the beginning of the film. Gets the movie off on the perfect start. An immense wave just floods and destroys this church. Very cool sequence. Next up, we've got the featurette Controlling the Uncontrollable. It's just over 5 minutes in length. It is an interview with writer, producer, director Mariano Baino. Baino discusses that directing a film is essentially trying to control something that is inherently uncontrollable. He also discusses his love of art and of drawing and features some of his own artwork, which was actually pretty darn good, and how art is something that he can control. So, nice little interview there with Mr. Baino, and again, very nice artist. Next up, we've got a making-of featurette entitled Deep into Dark Water. It's about 50 minutes and 20 seconds in length. We've got interviews with Mariano Baino, camera operator Steve Brooks Smith, actress Louise Salter, script supervisor and editor Rick Littler, associate producer Nick Dolly. They discuss the film. They discuss shooting the film in the Ukraine with a lot of locals and the many difficulties of shooting there with a local crew, including the fact that they refused to begin work before 8:15 in the morning, and of course all the translation issues. They would ask one of the extras, one of the locals who played an extra, to move just a few inches because they were in someone's sight line or they were in a light, and they would just get completely and utterly offended. They discussed the horrible food that they were served there. They discussed that there was a delay in production because the camera got lost in transit. They discussed shooting down in the labyrinthian catacombs of the city. They discussed their security guard, who was a drunk and carried a pistol, and all the shenanigans that you get into when you mix a drunk who's armed. It's a wonder any of them survived this shoot. And they also discuss vodka, because vodka was flowing while making this movie. They had horrible food, but they had plenty of vodka. As a matter of fact, I believe it's Steve Brooks Smith recounts when he had stepped on a board with a nail in it. The nail went up into his foot. They called a doctor to come to the set. What do you think the doctor doctored his foot with? Vodka. It cures what ails you. Highly entertaining making of featurette. As I said, it's a wonder any of them survived this shoot, between the drunken security guard with the gun, all the vodka, the unruly locals, the unruly local crew, the awful food, the perilous location. It's a wonder they survived. But really nice, really informative, really entertaining making of featurette there. We get a director's intro to the film. We get deleted scenes. We get a silent blooper reel with commentary by Mariano Baino. We get the short films of Mariano Baino, and we get an audio commentary with Mariano Baino. I watched about 45 minutes of the movie, kind of flipped around just to get a feel for the audio commentary. Pretty insightful, pretty informative. Mariano Baino goes into a lot of detail about the locations. The locations in this movie, even though you would never want to visit where they shot this movie, the locations are phenomenal. But yeah, nice audio commentary there with Mariano Baino. Again, if you guys want to challenge yourself, if you're tired of the same old when it comes to horror movies these days, definitely give Dark Waters a chance. You'll probably enjoy it. It's definitely different. It's definitely something that is more challenging. It's a little more cerebral. There's a lot more going on beneath the surface of this movie. I dug it. I'm going to give it a second look because I'm sure I missed a lot the first time around. This Blu-ray release from the fine folks over at Severin Films has a lot of good extras on it and great picture and sound quality. I highly recommend it. I'll put a link to Severin Films' website in the description. Go over and check them out. If you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up. If you're not following me on social media, those links are in the description. They're also right around here. As always, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care, and until next time, peace. Say hello to the internet, Jeremy.
Hello to the internet.